97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with Adam Caplan, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.
We expect to win every time we step on the field. That's just the mindset and the culture that we have.
Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
It is time for Football at 4. It's powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it's brought to you by PlaySugarHouse.com. Sign up now and match your first deposit up to $250. Go to PlaySugarHouse.com and win real money with their sports book along with casino games from the comfort of your home. You must be 21 or older to play. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast is here today. We got plenty of Eagles news to bring your way, so let's wait no longer. Here he is, the man, the myth, the legend, Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast. Adam?
Guys, good to talk to you today. Yeah, we 4 days out from the second game of the season, Eagles' first home game, and lots has happened this week. A lot of criticism of the quarterback. That's generally what happens in this market. Lots of injuries to get through, and certainly a game that was not expected in week one when they lost at Washington.
Yes, so let's get a quick glance back at what happened. Wentz, would you say coming off a bad game is a fair assessment or overblown?
No, it's fair. Look, it's interesting because if you watched him, first two series the execution was flawless. Nobody passes put on the right shoulder, but he got the job done. They looked great. It looked like it was going to be a blowout, and some of it was attributed to their offensive line, the struggles they had mid-second quarter on. Some was on Wentz, taking too many sacks, and so many passes were inaccurate, unfortunately. Really, in the mid-second quarter on, you just add it all up, Mike, it was an ugly game. It was an ugly loss in a game where the defense did its job, but the Eagles' offense, this has not been talked about enough. The Eagles' offense bogged down so badly that they kept giving the defense short field minus territory, and it showed. There's not much you can do to ask your defense to cover just 45 yards. It's a really difficult thing to keep asking, and I think everything happened. Plus the warm weather, low 80s. I thought they melted down a little bit. The depth all over the place really hurt them. But overall, when your quarterback does not play well like this, you're probably not going to win.
How much blame should go on Doug Peterson? Because I feel he was really dedicated to making that home run play happen, unless that goes on Carson Wentz, because he was the one going out there trying to hit the bomb. But it almost as if they were so obsessed with speed and getting fast all off season long that when it happened in week one, they just wanted to go long constantly.
Yeah, Hunter, that was probably when we did our show Inside the Birds, Jeff Mosher and I. We talked about that specifically. It was clear to me that they were going to come out throwing the ball deep, and they looked for Jackson. They couldn't find him. They threw the ball twice to Rager. They hit one of them for 55 yards. The other one would have been a 65-yard touchdown, but Rager unfortunately slowed up. That was not on Wentz. That was absolutely not correct. When I watched it live, I sure thought it was, but I didn't have access to people who actually graded the tape. So I asked two people who said the same thing, and Rager will learn. Even though if the first two looks from the quarterback are not two, you still got to run your route. Had he done that and caught the ball, that would have been a touchdown. But, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, John Hightower, who had the great training camp, did not show up in that game. He had a bad drop over the middle. He just didn't have a good game. He didn't look like he was ready. The lights were too big for him. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside was completely absent in that game. I just think when you look overall, there were so many issues on offense. We didn't even get the offensive line yet. I know we'll get to that, but Zach Ertz had an uncharacteristic drop, although he had a touchdown catch. Goddard had a great game, but really the only player on offense you could say that had a really good game, I would think, would be number 88, Dallas Goddard.
Yeah, and why? I mean, that you mentioned the first series, and Wentz looked really good early, and Goddard, a lot of quick stuff, got him the ball. Yeah. They spread it around that first series. Why'd they get away from that? That game plan looked to be a good one.
It did, and it surprised me because there were some slants built in, I'm told. When I first talked to people, I wasn't getting that feedback, but later as the week has progressed, I was told that they had some slants in, but Wentz didn't throw them. And then the run game, we didn't get that. Not that the Eagles run the ball a lot, but when they did, they were completely not successful. Wentz is part of that, checking to the right side. Wherever Washington was loaded, they shouldn't have run the ball, and they did a couple times where they shouldn't have done that. So I think Carson is going to look at this tape, from talking to people who've coached him, he always accepts responsibility. That's a good thing. And by the way, he did when he was with the media after the game, and that's like him. But historically, he doesn't have two bad games in a row. That's been kind of his MO for the first 4 years. So, though this matchup is tough, I expect him to bounce back this week. No
Miles Sanders, and then Boston Scott goes out, and Corey Clement didn't practice a lot last week. Do you think that had a factor in the run-pass differential?
No. I just think that they were not successful. Doug Peterson has a history when the run does not look good, and it was not good at all. Boston Scott did not perform well, but part of it was their line didn't open up the holes. I just think that Doug gave up on the run, and he saw that it wasn't working. So why try? What they really do, we know this, they pass the ball extremely well when everybody's healthy, but here's the problem. You're without two starters on the offensive line on the right side. And I'm told Jack Driscoll played fairly well for a rookie, but he also got overpowered at times. Nate Herbig, who we noted in our Inside the Birds pregame show, had a real chance to start, and that wound up happening. He was better than expected for his first start, but not good enough. And this is the problem. By the way, Jason Peters, Mike, bad game. When I say bad game, he might have 2 or 3 bad snaps a game. He had more than that. It just was not going to happen. Even Jason Kelsey did not have his usually great game, and I would say Malo is one of the most underrated guards in the National Football League. He didn't have a good game. So it was like Kelsey said after the game. It wasn't like every snap was bad, but they had too many of them. No one played well in the offensive line. That you can't win when when all of them don't play at a high level. You're not going to win. There's just no way.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because we had Baldy on yesterday, and he mentioned that, he thought Driscoll played fine, and he thought Herbig played fine. And basically he was saying it wasn't the fact that they were getting whipped. They weren't a turnstile. They weren't Winston Justice on Monday Night Football.
Right.
He thought a lot of the breakdowns came, he mentioned Boston Scott, the running back, missed a block. He thought it came from a lack of communication more than these guys basically getting their butts whipped.
I would say this with Driscoll. There were some plays where he got overpowered. He actually was one play that he got sent back into Wentz or close to him. But overall, here's the thing about Driscoll. You could build on this. The one issue, tonight we do our preview for the Rams game, and I know we're going to talk about that. Jack Driscoll's one issue that he has is functional strength. He just, not having an off season. He needs one off season to get put on 15 pounds, 10 to 15 pounds of muscle. But I'll say this: they have a very good chance of getting Jack Driscoll right as a 4th-round pick. He at worst he's going to be a rotational player for them in terms of off the bench if they need someone to come in. But the early returns for Jack Driscoll had a very good training camp, by the way, are pretty good.
So should we expect Driscoll to be the right guard moving forward on this line when Lane Johnson returns, or is there a chance maybe Brown?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
No, Jack Driscoll, as I just said, is not strong enough. I think, Hunter, I'm glad you brought this up because someone had asked me this. That's where not being strong enough. I just don't think he could play guard at this point. He's got to be a right tackle. And then Jamon Brown, it's highly unlikely he would start this game. It's just you have to, though he has some familiarity with this offense because Matt Nagy, the head coach of the Bears, they run a similar offense to the Eagles, a little different but similar. So he'll understand some of the blocking schemes, but it just won't be enough. No, Nate Herbig should be the starter this week against the Rams. And my goodness gracious, with Aaron Donald coming to town, and Lane Johnson, by the way, he will start at right tackle. He's back. I'm told that on that ankle surgery, he really needs another week, but he's going to gut it out. This is a very interesting surgery. I'm told it's the tightrope surgery, the same surgery that Tua Tagovailoa had and Jalen Hurts had, and many Alabama players have had it over the years, where you could take a normal ankle surgery, which would be 8 to 12 weeks, and you could reduce it to 3 or 4 weeks.
Adam Caplan, Inside the Birds podcast, of course, powering today's football at 4 here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. So the starting offensive line this week, I want to, Lane Johnson, it looks like he's going to play, and he'll be obviously back at right tackle. You mentioned Herbig. So does just getting Lane back change enough that the line shouldn't be a problem?
No, because number one, Kelsey's just got to bounce back. He's another guy rarely has 2 games in a row that he'd like to forget. I mean, you expect him to bounce back, say Malo to bounce back. Peters, you worry about. He, by the way, has a minor knee injury, so you worry about that. I'm told that Jordan Mailata has been backing him up in practice. So you do worry, though, Mike. You do worry. Here's another thing we're going to be talking about in the coming weeks. Is this line getting too old? Lane Johnson, 30. Jason Peters, 38. Jason Kelsey, 32 years old. You worry about this. You just worry about regression. It's only one game. We don't want to go overboard, but it's something to keep an eye on, particularly this week with Aaron Donald coming to the town.
You mentioned Mailata. I'm kind of interested in that whole situation because Pryor, who got passed over to play right guard for Herbig, he also not only got passed over to start at right tackle, he wasn't even the backup right tackle. So is he out of favor? What happened with that whole situation? Because Mailata passed him.
Yeah, he basically is been demoted. He's their 10th lineman. Yes, that hasn't been talked about enough, but we could definitely talk about it. He didn't have a great training camp, to be honest, Mike. And Mailata would have been ahead of him had he not missed 2 weeks of training camp due to COVID. I'm told with Mailata, his first week of training camp wasn't great. Then after that, he really improved. In fact, his last 2 weeks of practices have been terrific. So he should be, if something happens with Peters, he should be in their left tackle, barring something unforeseen. And I know they've gone out of their way not to play Mailata, but guess what? He played his first NFL game last week, and he did a decent job.
You mentioned Lane Johnson maybe pushing it because of how important this game is. Do you think Miles Sanders and this hamstring is him pushing it if he plays this week, or is he ready to go?
No, I'm told he's starting. They knew last week that he wasn't going to play, probably late in the week, but before their practice ended, because with a grade 2 hamstring strain, running backs you can't rush them. They've got to get all the fluid out, whether it's blood or it's fluid, and you just got to get it out so they don't have a setback. And it was 4 weeks exactly on Tuesday, I'm told. So barring a setback, he will be in the lineup. Now, the only question with Sanders is, provided he doesn't have a setback, how many snaps could he handle? They're not going to know that. It's really a medical decision. It'll be from their training staff. And they'll tell the coaches, this is what we think you need to do here. This is the type of injury where you don't want to give him 50 snaps week 1, that he's back. I would be shocked if he takes all the snaps in the game. I mean, I'm not that any running back does, but I would be shocked if he had 95% of the snaps in the first game back after this injury.
By the way, Lane Johnson has come out and said that he retore an ankle ligament in the scrimmage at the link, and he had to have it fixed because people were wondering what took him so long to get this surgery. Well, he said he did it at that scrimmage. He says he won't be 100%, but he will play.
Oh, yeah. So what happened is he tore scar tissue, number one. He actually said it on Derek Gunn's show. But as I understand it, the surgery, I'm told, was due to the high ankle sprain that he suffered last season when he remember, he missed 4 weeks, but high ankle sprains, he's had issues with that ankle before, and it just gave way. And that, because we had questions, people were like, well, wait a minute, why is he waiting so long? Well, it's because he re-injured it. That's what happened. He was okay to start training camp.
I'm a little worried when it comes to the defensive end position. Brandon Graham with the concussion, and what's up with Derek Barnett? Yeah,
so Moshe reported that Graham thinks he's going to be cleared by Friday. He has not been cleared yet, so we'll see. More often than not, players don't get cleared within 1 week. It's either 6 or 7 days, but because in Jeff's reporting, he knows for a fact that Brandon's feeling really good. You give him a chance, but he's got to pass through the protocol. So we'll see there. Derek Barnett, he practiced fully yesterday. If he practices fully today and tomorrow, he will play. The question is, what's his condition? I don't know how much he could play. Josh Sweat played terrific. Josh Sweat was their best defensive lineman last week, other than Blake Jackson, who played really good football. So they got to get through this. This is look. The Vinny Curry, we know, is not going to be back for a bit with his hamstring strain. So you worry about that. And Jeff's reporting, he had said that it was a couple days later. It was not as bad as first feared, but the fact of the matter is he won't be back for at least the first 3. He's going to miss 3 games, unfortunately. But that might mean, though, guys, Casey Tuhill dresses in place this week.
Adam Caplan at Caplan NFL, the Inside the Birds podcast. Make sure you make that a daily routine to get all your Eagles information. And, of course, during football at 4, Adam's here with us. And Eagles-Rams this Sunday. The Eagles line against Washington, they gave up 80 yards rushing. Malik Jackson, as you mentioned, Fletcher Cox, that interior. but the linebackers, the Rams ran the ball 40 times the other night. So would you imagine that they are going to check out these Eagles linebackers, and if the defensive end situation's a problem, do you anticipate the Rams, because Jim Schwartz said they're committed to the run, are they committed to running it 40 times, and could that be a problem against the Rams this week?
I'd be sure. Well, listen, I'll say this much. I was wrong 2 years ago. The Rams came out running. The Eagles are one of the better run defensive teams. Like, if you want to beat the Eagles, you throw it. Sean McVay needs to come out throwing. If I were him, I'm throwing the football, and I'm not going to stop throwing the football. If they come out running, the Eagles are going to win this game. The Eagles should pray that they run the football. Here's the problem that the Eagles have here. Craig James, who was their fifth corner, was their top outside corner. He's on injury reserve, okay? Trevor Williams probably will be signed off the practice squad. He's a kid from Penn State who started some games with the Chargers. He should dress as their fifth corner. They have till Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern to make that decision. So if I'm the Rams, I'm spreading the Eagles out. The Rams could go 11 personnel, which is 3 receivers and run back. They could go 12 with 2 tight ends. Although Gerald Everett got banged up, he's their number 2 tight end. He's their moved athletic tight end. But Tyler Higbee, if you remember, he set an NFL record for tight ends with 4 100-yard games in a row for a tight end. That's incredible. So they could spread them out. To me, if they come out throwing, the Eagles are in trouble. It'll be hard for the Eagles to handle that because other than Slay and Maddox, they're just not deep a corner. To answer your question, Mike, I really feel like they have to come out throwing if you're Rams.
I was going to ask you, how did you think the corners, you had Slay, who essentially, I think Schwartz said he played man like 50 plays, and that he essentially did what they wanted him to do. I thought Maddox played pretty well. You got Roby Coleman, who I guess would be matched up with Cooper Kupp this week. Yeah,
and Cooper Kupp's 6'1.5". Roby Coleman's 5'7" and 0.2 of an inch, so he's got almost a half a foot on him. At least Roby Coleman knows the player because he went against him in practice with the Rams, but that's a tough matchup. Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned here when you just match up personnel to personnel. By the way, I am told Slay played really well. They played he traveled with McLaurin and did a great job against him. He only gave up 2 plays, so that's good. Now, but you got Robert Woods, one of the most underrated receivers in the National Football League. Josh Reynolds, who's a 6'3" receiver who's in the last year of his rookie deal. The Eagles did a good job of stopping him 2 years ago. And Van Jefferson, Sean Jefferson's kid. Sean Jefferson's the former NFL receiver and the receivers coach for the Jets. So he's a pretty accomplished kid. He's their second-round pick. So the Eagles are going to be challenged here, guys. This is going to be a fun game because matchup-wise, the Eagles secondary is going to be really tested this week.
What do you think about the whole Desean Jackson thing when it came to, not playing him as much, limiting him, sort of like a Joel Embiid factor, if you will? And then yesterday in practice, you just had a rest day. Do you think that they're babying him a little too much?
No, this is the plan. I'm told this is something that they're going to make sure that he gets through practice every week. In fact, last summer, they made a decision that they were not going to work him a lot in practice. And by the way, he did not practice very much this summer. This is just the way they do it. You're not going to play him 75% of the snaps every week. You're probably going to play him 50% of the snaps at most. Now, I know Doug Peterson was asked this in the press conference, and he may play him more, but he's kind of like a race car, man. You got to be careful. You can't overplay him. This guy's 33 years old, turns 34 in December, and he needs to play. He is so important to their offense. The other thing was, forget the snaps, guys. He just didn't get the ball enough in this past game. That to me was surprising, but I have to give Jack Del Rio, the Washington team defense coordinator. They played cover 2. They were not going to give up deep balls, and other than the Rager play, that was the only deep ball they really gave up.
Did we learn anything about what with Mills and how they're going to use him? I mean, were you surprised? He kind of seemed like he was somewhat in that Jenkins role.
Yeah, he did some hybrid stuff. Yeah, and remember, with Will Parks out, they can't do everything. But the one thing I do want to say defensively was disappointing. No turnovers. The problem is when you don't disguise much, and the Eagles don't disguise in the back end, you're telegraphing what you're doing defensively. Yeah, the Eagles were disciplined. There's no question they executed well, but they didn't force one turnover. This has been the problem the last few years. They just don't force enough turnovers, and that's got to change.
One game. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside played 28 of 68 snaps. I don't think he had a target. John Hightower had 4. Is that enough for us to kind of find out what they think of Arcega-Whiteside, or is that just, hey, it's only 1 week?
It's only 1 week, but that's disappointing in a game where they got shut out in the second half, where they gave up 24 straight points. I'm told there was one play you could have thrown it to him, Wentz, and he didn't. But you're right. You're right, Mike. That's severely disappointing. They needed him in the second half because the thing the Eagles lack is a quality possession receiver besides with Jeffrey out. Unless J.J. Arcega-Whiteside's doing his job, and he just didn't get it. And that you got to make yourself a target. This is what receiver coaches tell me. Not every play needs to be to you, but you need to command the football and you need to get open. And though he had a good camp, I'm told, look, it didn't happen. This is one game, and he needs to show up this week.
What did you think about the linebackers? That's something that Baldy said stood out to him in a positive way.
Decent. Wasn't great, I'm told, by team source. Not a lot of mental buffs, but the problem that you have with the Eagle linebackers is this. They're just not super instinctive. This is why some of them were undrafted and low-round picks. But they didn't hurt the football team. Well, again, look who they're going up against. An offense devoid of playmakers. They couldn't get the Washington team, other than a couple nice runs, couldn't get Antonio Gibson on track, the former slot receiver for Memphis. Now he's playing running back. I mean, this is what hurts Gibson, the fact that he didn't have an offseason. He's just not comfortable yet.
Adam Caplan, how do the Eagles deal with Aaron Donald?
It's a great question. Slide protection, going with Goddard. Well, the Eagles play a lot of 12 personnel anyway. They're more than any NFL team, but you may have to keep Goddard in more to block. He's a terrific blocker, by the way. Already one of the best blocking tight ends in the NFL. You might go with a sixth lineman. I'll tell you what, though. If I'm Brandon Staley, the D coordinator for the Rams, I'm going to line him up at end. I'm going to line him up on the right side, and I'm going to test Lane Johnson and that surgically repaired ankle. I'm going to test Nate Herbig. I'm going to get him lined up on Jason Peters. We're going to see how good Peters' knee is. So you got to be wary of him all game. Now I got to give the Eagles credit. 2 years ago, they absolutely stonewalled him. They did a great job against them, and Peterson's a terrific game day play caller and got a kind of a good schemer for a game sometimes when he needs to. This challenge is going to be enormous for him, for Doug Peterson and that offensive staff, because if Donald wreaks havoc, that means their passing game isn't happening, and they need to bounce back in that area.
All right, we'll leave with this. 5 years of Carson Wentz. He was the 2 pick. 5 years of Jared Goff. What is L.A. quarterback Jared Goff? When you think of the Rams, he's not the first guy typically that rolls off your tongue. He's not who you think of. Who's Jared Goff?
He's a program quarterback off play action, pretty accurate quarterback, has decent athleticism. But you'll notice they roll him out a ton to create space for him to throw the football because he does not have a great arm. Carson Wentz is really way more talented. But you know what? Jared Goff also got the Super Bowl. So the guy's a good football player. He's been coached very well by Sean McVay. And he also has really good options at the wide receiver and tight end position. And that kind of helps you. When you've got help around you, that helps. And I think he's an upper half quarterback, but he's not in the top 10. I think he's somewhere around 13 or 14.
All right, that's the matchup, 1 versus 2 from the 2016 draft. It'll be the second time they match up. These teams have met 3 times, 2 times in the last 3 years. They did not play last year. And don't forget the Inside the Birds podcast and the Inside the Birds pregame show on Sunday at 10 o'clock. They'll get you ready for that game. Great insight with Adam and Jeff and Greg Cosell and Trey Thomas. It was a lot of fun watching that on Sunday morning. And, of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Adam, thank you so much, man.
Guys, thank you.